Have you ever wondered what Lapland is really like? I'd like to show you. Hi, I'm Daniel Laplander. Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in Lapland? What's it really like, apart from Santa Claus, and reindeers and things that you hear or watch? What's it really like? I've spent half of my life abroad, but I grew up here in Lapland, and I would like to show you from the insider perspective what Lapland is really like, the way I see it. So stick with me. Something I have to say about Lapland is the wildly shifting beauty. I love nature, and I try to go out into nature as much as possible. And when I do, I always try to make fire. That's just something to do here. You make fire. Social life goes on around fire. Of course, it's not for everybody, but this is how I grew up. The quiet and the peace is something that I really love about this place. Right here where I am now, I don't think there's anybody for at least 3 or 4 kilometers away. Nobody. It's just me. I came here with a boat. And you have to come prepared, of course. That's why I have a knife, Mora knife, by the way, for you guys that love knives. This is an old Mora, traditional Swedish knives, and you have to come prepared. The mentality here is quite survivalish, if that is a word. Yeah, you have to come prepared for wherever you come across. I mean, for instance, I have 2 boat engines. I have oars, so I can make my way back. I have this thing called allemansrätten, and it means the right for every person to access nature. It means that you can pick up firewood, dead wood. You can't cut living wood, of course, and use it. You can pick berries, you can pick mushrooms, and harvest whatever the forest supplies. And you can enjoy nature. You can come out here. You can even pitch a tent for 24 hours, even though it's private property, as long as it's not fenced in. There are vast, untouched areas around here. If I were to just go into the forest and walk, I would probably get lost and if I walk in a straight line, I would walk for miles and miles and miles without encountering any type of trail, road or anything. Of course it depends where you are, of course, but that is in many cases the truth. There can be as much as maybe 40-50 kilometers in between each neighbor sometimes with the houses. This is home for me, even though Spain is also home. But what I wanted to do was to show you a little bit of what Lapland is really about. Right, what type of plant life do you have here? Well, there's a lot of pine trees, fir trees, birch trees. The flora is not as rich as maybe in the south of Europe, where it's more kind of a subtropical climate. The plants here have to be hardy, as the animals and the people as well. We have to be hardy, otherwise there is no surviving the winter. You have moose. They can become really large. They can become bigger than a horse, and weigh, I think, 300 or 400 kilos at least, the big ones. The reindeers, they're the smaller version of the moose, if you want to explain it in some way. They are the property of the Sami people. You can't hunt as a normal Swedish person or anybody else unless you're Sami. You can't hunt reindeer. You can hunt moose with special permit. You have to be involved in a group of hunters and have permission to do so. But the reindeers are property of the nomadic people of the Sami. I'm going to tell you a little bit later on in the video about the Sami. It's got a very interesting and tragic history. Something you have to keep in mind when you travel here is the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes around midsummer, the summer solstice, they come out and they can destroy pretty much the summer. There are a bit different types of mosquitoes. You have the normal mosquito, you know, with the traditional one with the long legs that you can see. And then you also have two other smaller versions. They're called knott and Sweden in my dialect. They're small, you can hardly see them, but they will bite. They don't actually have a snout that they stick in, but they actually bite and lick the blood when it comes out to the surface. One good thing is to have wind like we have today. It's a good wind. You have mosquito repellents and smoke from the fire. Smoke from the fire is also good. So we're going to see if I can get this going. You see in the movies that you make fire in the first try. That doesn't happen normally. Too windy. Wait until the wind has died down a little bit. Something that's really useful as well when you're making a fire is birch bark. Birch bark, I don't have any birches on this island unfortunately, but otherwise a little bit of birch bark, it's got a kind of an oil there, and that can be really good. You have to kind of coax the flames a little bit. Just be careful. when you think about Lapland, sometimes you think about Santa Claus, and I'm really sorry to tell you that Santa Claus is not from Lapland. He is actually from the North Pole. So, sorry guys, spoiler alert a little bit there. So, if you want to travel here, it's good to know the seasons. I like to come in autumn, around September, October, where the leaves of the birch trees turn yellow, and the ground, the plants on the ground, they turn a nice, lovely red, and it's just very, very colourful. You can have the misfortune of having a lot of rain and wind and sleet and things like that, but not usually. I can also recommend to come during this season here. You have this is in the middle of August. There can be a lot of mosquitoes, but normally they kind of die out a little bit more. It depends also where in the country you are. The further north you go, normally the more mosquitoes you have. So to get here, you would normally have to take 2 flights to come to the north of Sweden. You would have to fly up to Stockholm first of all, and then take a plane from Stockholm airport to either an airport called Skellefteå or another one called Umeå. Normally I fly to Umeå, and then I might rent a car there. In this case I flew to the south of Sweden to an airport with Ryanair called Skavsta, and my brother lent me a car. I drove up. It took I think it was it 9 or 10 hours or so. Stopped over at my sister's on the way up, and then I have a car to move around here. It's very important to have a car when you move around here, because the distances are enormous. And buses, yes, there are buses, there are trains, but the grid is not very well developed because it's so vast. So you can take buses in between cities and sometimes a train in between certain cities. But if you want to go anywhere to see anything, you need a car. A motorbike, you can do motorbikes. I'm a biker myself, and I drive a lot of motorbike in Spain. But it's very limited, the time period here. And if you have a lot of mosquitoes, you know what it's like if you're a biker and you have insects in the air. So I would recommend a car actually. Now once you're here, you can do things like dog sledding. I have some friends just across this lake, a little bit further that way, called White Horizon. I'll put a link below. They have a company with dog sledding during the winter season, and excellent people. And also they take care of the dogs, and the dogs live in large enclosures. You can go to their website with a link below here and have a look at how the dogs live, and they treat them very well. And when you say that, when huskies and dogs like that, many people have the misconception that it's cruelty, but that's not true. The dogs love to run. They love to pull. It's in their instinct to pull, and that's their favorite thing is to pull. So you're doing them a favor, the dogs a favor, to go there and ride with them. I have no deal with them or anything like that. I'm just thrown out. It's a fun thing to do. I know the people and I trust them. The winter activities, they differ quite a lot from the summer activities. In the winter you have a lot of skiing, of course. You have slalom, snowboarding, and all of those things. Also, many people use snowmobiles. In my town, I think there are more snowmobiles per person than there is actually cars. So you can use those means of transportation to get out. For instance, this is where I used to come sometimes when I was a child in the winter, and just dig a hole in the snow. The snow might be this deep. You dig a hole in the snow and make a fire in the middle, and that, you make benches, put reindeer skins on those snow benches, and then you can sunbathe. It becomes really warm in these, and some people even strip off and and sunbathe, no problem at all. Of course, depending on the weather. But the sunshine is really bright here in the winter because it reflects off the surface of the snow, so it becomes very, very bright. Of course, something that you will have in the winter time is the Northern Lights. This region is famous for the Northern Lights. Actually, the Northern Lights are present all year around, but you can't see them during the summer because it's very light here in the summer. There is a couple of weeks during the summer, the sun never sets. It just rotates around the horizon. And of course that causes light pollution, and then you won't be able to see the Northern Lights because the sky isn't dark enough. The opposite happens in the winter. It becomes really dark, and around Christmas there's only like 2 or 3 hours light, which means that the sun only rises a little bit, and then a couple of hours later it just dips below the horizon again. And during these long, cold winter nights, you can see if you're lucky, you can see the Northern Lights. I was lucky to come here with some friends a couple of years ago, and we saw spectacular Northern Lights. It's hard to film them unless you have good camera equipment, but I had a friend who took some really amazing photos, and I'll show them to you here. There are apps that you can use to see the prediction of the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights are caused by sun flares, and these flares hit Earth, and we have, as you know, a magnetic field around the Earth, and when that hits the magnetic field around the polar circle, it creates these Northern Lights. They can come in different colors. Normally you see them on the pictures, you see them green, but to the naked eye it's more white. Sometimes you can see them a little bit green, some pink, but normally the first stages of the Northern Lights, they are normally simply white, and they move slowly across the sky, and it's absolutely fabulous. There are many people that come here just for Northern Light spotting, but of course it's a chance. It's the same as animal spotting. How can you guarantee that you'll see an animal? You can't guarantee either that you'll see the Northern Lights. But still, even though you come here to search for the Northern Lights, it's not a waste of time, because this is so beautiful. Even though you don't see it, you get to do the snowmobile rides or skiing, whatever you want to do, and it's absolutely fabulous, and you will not regret coming here even though you don't see the Northern Lights. I've come to a different place now, just across the lake, and this place is called Kyrkviken. It's the bay of the church, And you might ask, why is it called the Bay of the Church? Well, as I told you, the Sami, they are the first people that lived here, and as many would argue, the rightful owners to the land. And of course, history repeats itself, and they were mistreated by the Swede. When the Swede came up from the south, they took control of the Sami and they started to abuse them for forced labor, experiments, and many different atrocities that fortunately rather, today the Swedish government and the Swedish people are trying to atone for. There are many lands around here that are dedicated to the Sami people. They have the right to hunt and to fish in many different ways than the rest of us do, and rightfully so, I think. And also they have their own governmental organ. They can decide. They're quite independent, so it's a really good thing. The reason why it is so important for us to actually atone for the sins that have been committed in the past is the atrocities, like the Spaniard when they come to South America, for instance, or whenever the British people came to North America and oppressed the indigenous people. The same thing has happened here. And right here behind me, it's a little bit hard to see, but here's a square. I'll see if I can. And if you can see the lines in the grass, here's a line going up, and it continues over there and comes back here. This here was a building. It's a building site. It's perfectly square. It's north-south facing, which means that this is correct, that there was a church here in the 18th century, and in this Kyrkviken. What happened here in this church, why it's not still here, is a tragedy, because the Swede, when they came here, they forced the Sami people to slave labor. They had to ship ore from the mines in the mountains in the Norwegian border and ship them down here to the coast. Not here, but they went actually past here. This is the route here across these lakes and across here in the forest as well. Behind me, it's called Nasaleden. That is a route that they would forced to go with their reindeer and their sleds, ship the ore in wintertime from the mines in the north down to the coast to be then treated over there. The Sami people rebelled against the Swede, and they had especially cruel Swedish people that would come up here, and they would control the Sami, and they would collect the taxes, and they would do all sorts of things to them. And if they didn't obey, they would, for instance, chop up a hole in the ice, chop up another hole a little bit further away, and they would drag the poor Sami under the ice and out the other way. And of course, this in many cases was a death sentence. You would freeze to death, and of course, ice underneath is sharp. There's kind of stalactites down a little bit like that. It's not even many times, which means that they could also cut themselves when they were pulling the rope. So a lot of died, drowned, or froze to death, unfortunately. And once these Sami rebelled against the Swede had forcefully christened the Sami from their ancient beliefs, and they would call them to church meetings, and this here was one of the churches that they would gather at once a year. And when they called them to gather here, they closed the doors, men and children, women inside, and And the counts tell that they rolled in a wagon in the front entrance and they closed the doors. And this wagon was filled with hay, and the hay was burning. On this place here, many people died and were burnt alive. And this is something that's always been a part of my childhood. I've come here sometimes just to ponder the cruelty of the Swede, the cruelty of the humankind. How can we sink so low that we actually do these atrocities to other people just because they are an ethnic minority? It is quite beyond me. And therefore I wanted to share with you what happened in this place. This is an account that is written down in a book by Åke Larsson. I can see if I can find a link to put in the description below to this book if you want to read it. It is in Swedish, of course. Also, I've spoken to Sami people that have verified that this story is correct. And this book brings up the details of it as far as the author has been able to deem is correct. Of course, there might be historical errors, but this is what I have understood. This is the story that I've gotten told to me about this place. This place here is about maybe 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers from our summer house. So I certainly hope that history doesn't repeat itself anymore. I'm going to show you a little bit more as well on how the Sami people lived and the traditional huts they used to live in. I'm not an expert in history, I'm not an expert in the Sami, but I do love them and I do respect them, and I do respect that this was their land before the Swede came and took over. So I wanted to share this with you. I hope you find it interesting. By the way, if you feel that this content is something that you like, go ahead and subscribe and press that notification button as well, and then I can continue to upload material that you think is interesting. Have you ever heard of a Surströmming challenge? It's become popular online to do these challenges when they open a tin of Surströmming, which is basically fermented herring that's been fermenting for about a year, and they just take it and open it and eat it straight up. You don't do it like that. This is something that I've grown up with. I've eaten Surströmming my whole life and I love it. And I'm going to show you the way to properly eat and prepare Surströmming into a sandwich, which is scrumming. My mouth is just watering when I'm talking about it here. I'm going to show you how to make this sandwich, and we're going to eat it now in my parents' conservatory because if you eat it indoors you're going to regret it for a couple of days. It's very strong, the smell from Surströmming, and it just clings to furniture and plates and your breath and other things for a few days or a couple of days. So let's get the party started. I'm on my way now to a precipice that has a bit of a tragic story, or macabre story rather. And I'm doing a lovely little forest walk here. I'm in my hometown now, called Malå, and Malå is a very large, space-wise, not comparatively in Lapland. It's one of the smallest, but still, the municipality is bigger than the biggest municipality in Spain. So I live in Spain. For those of you who live in Spain, it's a bit of a comparison there. But there's only about 3,000 people living in the municipality, so there's a lot of space in between each person. So I'm gonna show you. I'm on the top of the mountain and I'm climbing a tiny bit higher, and now I'm gonna show you the precipice and the story behind it. Legend tells that the Sami people threw themselves off this cliff when it was time to leave their earthly life. This was due to their nomadic lifestyle, because when age and disease set in, they couldn't follow the reindeer herds anymore and decided to finish their life. The last Sami that left in this manner was Erik Schulson. He drove his sled off the mountain into eternity. And therefore this place has taken its name from him, the Erik Schulsa stone. As I was heading back from the Erik Schulsa stone, I got this fabulous view of Malå in a thunderstorm. It was just coming closer and closer, and you could see the lightning in the distance. And the view of Malå is absolutely fabulous, so watch the lightning. I'd like to come back in the winter time to show you what Malå is like. Ski slopes, the bustling tourism. But this is summertime now, and look how beautiful Malå is. It's well worth a visit. There are many activities to do in this town, even though it's small, and the main thing you will discover is the peace and quiet that you don't get in big city life. People are much more relaxed here, and it's just a perfect spot to switch off. Malå is largely dependent on the forest industry. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of details, but I just wanted to show you a little clip of what happens with the logs when they go through the processing in the sewing mill. Of course, there is this beach in the lake. The water is cold. I swam there many times as a child, but have a look at the sunset. Any respectable town needs to have an infart for God's arrivals. Where does it lead? I will leave that to your imagination. And of course, if you have an infart, you have to have an... And now the turn has come to Arjeplog. Arjeplog is a town situated about an hour and a half north of Malå. It is about the same size. It also has bustling winter activities with ski slopes, and also test cars that come from all over Europe to test their new concept cars in the winter time. It is also famous for its church that is made completely out of wooden scales. It's pink for some reason. And also for the Silver Museum, which displays the local art, the history of the area, especially when it comes to the Sami and the inheritance that they have left us, especially when it comes to They're really huge collection of silver artifacts that the Sami has created. A lot of people come to fish in Arjeplog. Arjeplog has Hornavan, the lake which is the deepest lake in Sweden with 221 meters of depth. It is perfect for fishing and a lot of people take it quite seriously. A little island, just walking distance from Arjeplog, shows you a treasure. There are Sami dwellings and storage facilities that have been disassembled from their original locations and put up here so that you and I can just go and have a look and see what they used to live like before. These are actually proper houses and storages that Sami used to use, and you can come here and just enjoy them, and this location is absolutely gorgeous. Could you imagine living here for a winter with your family? If you need somewhere to stay when you come to Arjeplog, I can recommend the Hotel Hornavan. I haven't actually slept here myself since I have my summer house close by, but I've used the facilities. I've used the spa. They have a couple of large jacuzzis, a sauna with panoramic views over the lake and the little islands. Absolutely beautiful. And just look at this entrance that they have here. They really put an effort into making it look the part. It's time for me now to drive off into the sunset, but I'll be back. And I would like to know what you would like to see from me in the future. So please drop a comment. Hej då!